Hello, everyone. How you doing? The conversation is going to be about reparations, and I know I've discussed this a lot, but we're going to keep discussing it because bottom line is we need to have this conversation. We need to talk about this. I want to know how you feel about it. Give me a quick second. I'm going to do some sharing real quick, share some notifications. I want people to join in the conversation. I want people to join in the conversation. I want people to discuss the reasons why you think reparations should be paid or not paid. By the way, in the background, it's my AC that's actually running because it's hot today. But I want to know if you are watching, I want to know if you think reparations should be paid. And if not, I want you to explain in detail using an actual thought, not just some insult, not just some slant towards black people. Actually make a coherent argument. I'm here to talk. How you doing, Amber? How you doing? How you doing? I want to have a conversation about this. I want to know how some of you feel about reparations. I want to know what it is that can make some of you change your mind if you don't think reparations should be paid. I want to know what would it take to change your mind. All right. So I want to know that. I want to know what would it take to change your mind if you don't think reparations should be paid. Amber says it's about the history of Tacoma, Washington, and the Black Prisoner Caucus. Absolutely, another another ancient one says they should and will be paid in full this year, or I am not. Another ancient one. How you doing? Amber says, have you happened to see the documentary since I've been down? Have not. Another ancient one says, preach. All right, so yes, I want to know why some people think reparations should not be paid. I think reparations should be paid specifically to foundational Black Americans. It should not be college stuff. It should not be tax stuff. It should not be property stuff. It should be cash payments. You want to know why? Because all the things that you're going to mention, we could buy that in cash. Nope. I've already consulted with FBA. I've consulted with a lot of black people. If you look at the polls, we want cash only. No, I don't want to discuss anything else. Just cash. Just cash. And if the debt is owed to us, then we should get a choice in how it is actually paid out, right? So with that being said, the reason why it has to be like this, right? The reason why we're asking for payments in cash only for foundational Black Americans, the reason why is because when affirmative action was drafted, the early wave feminists asked for women to be added. Now, that seemed harmless at the time, but what happened is that once you included women, that included white women. And that's why right now, if you Google it, the majority recipient of affirmative action is actually white women. So you can't mention affirmative action. Well, reparations have already been paid in affirmative action. You can't say that because now you owe us because it's mostly white women who are benefiting from it. Period. Mid Mick Mick K M Rex says who owes you money? The United States of America. Tommy Wright says we need proof of signing of the reparations. Absolutely. User says gosh, user. If you're gonna leave comments, make it constructive. If you want to have a conversation, then let's have a conversation. If you're leaving comments, you have more than 1,000 followers, hop into the guest box there. Let's have a conversation. I don't want to hear somebody trolling or just leaving silly comments. Be respectful, right? Be respectful. And also, don't mention abortion here because we're not talking about abortion. Now, we're going to have a live stream later about that, but that's not really applicable to what we're talking about right now. By the way, this is my cat, Rue. She's blind, and she's sitting here making sure that I can't stream correctly. But no, I want to have this discussion because I want to know why people think it shouldn't be paid. Because when you break down the reasons, you find out very, very quickly that people can't really articulate reasons at all. At all. Right? Vinny Fresh says the government is ran by rich white Democrats. You ain't getting. We are. We are. Sono says, where would the money come from? The U.S. government. The same money, the same U.S. government that paid out the Japanese and the Italians reparations. Same one, because we paid taxes on that too. And unless you're gonna talk about reimbursing us personally, that's the only way I'm going to consider your opinion. Okay. Somer says, Somer and Odu 420 says, how do you think reparations should play out, man? Cash only. Now, if you want to add things on top of the cash, that's fine, but cash should be first. Period. We're not discussing anything else. If you don't discuss anything else, then there's no reason for you to even be here. There's no conversation to be had. Because the damage that was done needs to be paid back in cash. You want to know why? Because when you talk about benefits and education and land grants, you know what's going to happen? Those lands are going to be still affected by property taxes. Then you're going to just hike them up like they always do. And then it's going to be taken by white people and then given to white people. And then the education benefits is basically going to end up just like affirmative action. It's supposed to benefit us, but because the word women was added to affirmative action, it mostly benefits white women. So no, cash only. And if it's not cash, then there's no conversation. And there's consequences for that. We can choose not to vote. We can choose to place political pressure, social pressure. You know, everybody's counting on us to support their movements. We can choose to strategically withdraw our support. We can sit things out. We can protest in ways that you haven't seen before. There are certain things that are very effective in the U.S. See, we've had 400 years of practice. This is why we are only 13% of the population, and yet every time we turn up, you notice that we change the whole country. Unlike any other group. Because we are the warrior class of this country. See, you wouldn't even have a country right now if it was not for the Moors. The Moors fought in the American Revolutionary War, and it was noted how well they fought. In fact, the original 13 colonies was divvied up from Moorish land. That's in the Smithsonian Museum right now. Don't believe it? Look it up. I bet you money that it's true. It's in museums. Even when it came to the American Civil War, the South was beating the North because all the Southern schools, all the Southern military schools was right there in the South, such as South Carolina, where I come from. See, I know my state's history. I know it all too well. 40% of your slaves who actually did come off of slave ships, which is, in my opinion, I don't think most of them actually came off slave ships. I think most of them came from this land because we're actually indigenous to this land. The ones who did come off of actual slave ships, though, most of them, the highest percentage of them came through South Carolina, my home state. So some of these stories that you're hearing were passed down from generations. You're calling my grandmother and great-grandmother and my great-grandfather liars if you don't kind of accept it. In fact, if you look up the Moor Sundry Act of 1790, you'll find that there was a Moorish black person who showed up in front of South Carolina General Assembly and a court eventually saying that, hey, I'm black, you have slavery here, but I'm actually a Moroccan citizen. And so because they were a Moroccan citizen, there was the Moor Sundry Act, which was an advisory to not enslave Moroccan citizens. It's one of the reasons why Morocco was the first country to have a treaty with the U.S. First one. And one of the major reasons is that there were so many black Moors here, Moroccan citizens, who were already here. So if you look up the Moor Sundry Act, you will see that everything that I'm saying is true. The Sultan back then recognized that. And they had something called the Barbary Pirates. And those Barbary Pirates, whenever the country of Morocco, whenever they would hear about how their citizens were put in as slaves, they would have the Barbary Pirates to go and take a white vessel captive. And they would hold that vessel until that black person was released. In fact, right now, the only reason why we are allowed to be treated the way that we are is because Morocco can no longer enforce that treaty. That's the only reason why. See, you have to realize there's a reason why there was so much Islam in, with early ancient Africans. There's a reason why. And Islam ran throughout. And so the early African Muslims, they were called the Moors. Now, Moors was a catch-all term for many, many things, but these were black African Moors. They came from Morocco. They came right here to these lands. The Native Americans interacted with them, had families with them. It's a known thing. In fact, when Christopher Columbus finally did make it here, right? Because when he first landed, he landed in freaking, I think, Asia. But when he finally landed here, he ran into natives who were dark skinned, and they handed him some spearheads. And those spearheads were made of an alloy that only comes from Africa. How would that happen? Unless we've been here for quite some time. There are peer-reviewed studies out right now that are relatively recent that demonstrates we've been here for a long time. See, that's why reparations has to be paid to a lineage, not to every black person out there just because you're black. Because even from the very get-go, we knew that not every black person would get reparations. We knew that from the start. So it should be limited to people who are direct descendants of those American slaves. Now, how would you trace that? Not through DNA. Because even most native tribes don't take DNA for tribal membership. Most of them don't. Because they understand the problem with that, right? The problem with that is that if you were to check your lineage and you were in the U.S., everybody's going to go back to Africa, some part of Europe, and some part of the Middle East, and they're going to be some part native. So you would have to include everybody. So what they do is they not only say, if you got DNA, that's great, but it's got to be lineage based. You got to pull your lineage, which makes sense. It makes sense because when you think about it, look at, for example, if you look at Hurricane Hugo. I experienced Hurricane Hugo in South Carolina, and it was a horrible hurricane, one of the worst that we've ever experienced. Haiti also experienced a hurricane in recent years. So should I go over to Haiti and try to get money from Haiti just basically only because I'm black and I experienced a hurricane? I experienced the same thing, right? I'm also black, right? It may have happened in different time periods and on different lands, but I experienced it. Don't you think that I should get paid too? No. Doesn't make sense. When Japanese people were on paid reparations, they didn't turn around and were required to share it with people from Thailand and China and Taiwan. They were not required to do that. They were allowed to keep it amongst themselves, and not every Japanese American got reparations. We understand that. Italian Americans, were they required to share reparations with everybody who was white, or even Sicilian, or even from Europe? No. They were allowed to keep it amongst themselves. When we send money to Israel, when we send money to Germany, when we send money to other countries, do they have to now share it with everybody else who's in that same region, who looks just like them? Even if they're going to do something similar? No. When we send aid over to African countries, do they share it with everybody from freaking Africa? Even if they're going through something similar? No. So reparations needs to be limited to foundational black Americans. And if you don't know what a foundational black American is, I've explained it thoroughly. People play silly like they don't understand what that is. It's been explained thoroughly. A foundational black American, put simply, is a black descendant of American slaves. It cannot be anybody else. You have to be black. I don't care if you are, well, see, my great grandfather was a quarter black. So no. You have to claim black at least for the past 10 years. and actually be black passing. Actually look black. Be black. Because all of a sudden, see, white supremacists, people who come from different parts of the diaspora, who just want a piece of our pie, suddenly everybody starts playing genealogy. What is white? What is black? What is that? You know exactly what that is. Because as soon as I mention police brutality, what's the first thing that people mention? Well, what about all the black on black crimes? So you know what black is. Don't play dumb with me. You know exactly what that is. As soon as I mention the fact that black people are disproportionately shot by the police, you say, well, there's actually more white people shot by the police. So you know what white is. You know exactly what white is. See, white supremacists, they play these silly games. Always. When they're caught in a corner, when they can't explain away why foundational black Americans should get their paper, should get reparations, suddenly it's the deny game. Well, are you sure that you know what black is? What is black? What is black? And then you ask them about Democrats. Well, those black people, they're always voting for Democrats. Wait, I thought you said you didn't know what black was. And then all of a sudden, when you mention any issue that affects black people, that somewhat affects white people, like poverty or homelessness, say 40% of your homeless are black people. Well, there's a lot of white people who's homeless too. Do you agree that 40% of the black people are that 40% are actually black though? Yeah, I agree with that. But most of them are white. So then you know what white and black is. That's what you're saying then, right? See, everybody in this chat right now, everybody's watching this stream right now, you've all heard this stuff before. You've seen something like that before, right? You've all seen this. And if you're saying that you haven't, I would advise you have more conversations about this kind of stuff. I'm not going to denigrate you. I'm not going to criticize you. I would advise you to have more conversations like this, and you'll see this stuff. See, this is why many white supremacists and people who are fake allies and people who are disingenuous, that's why they can't stand people like me. I'm a problem. Because I see past them and I show you how to see past them. That's the real issue they have with me. Right? That's the real issue they have with me. They can't stand me because no tricks work. All the gaslighting, all the silly stuff, all that, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Right? It's just like now, you get people leaving comments, you get people who say the same silly stuff that you've heard a million times. A million times. And it never works. See, that's why white supremacists don't understand, right? That we know what you're doing. You've done the same tactics so often that you're predictable now. We are on code. You're noticing black people are actually defending black people now. You're noticing black people who are trying to become media figures now. Black people who are a part of the grassroots now. You're noticing black people who are actually being proud to be black. And it's no longer a dirty word. You got people out there who are not only proud to be black, but we look at blackness itself as a positive thing. The very concept of blackness is beautiful. And there's people out there who can't stand that, who want so hard to push us off of that. Because there's some people who come from different parts of the African diaspora who bring their tribalism here. And we don't mind you having a tribe, but understand, while you are in these lands, we are the ones who built the country. We don't mind you taking credit for things that your people have done. But we will not tolerate disrespect. Not on these lands that we built. Donald Trump himself, and I was blown away when he said it. Even Donald Trump said black Americans built the country. James Martin says, you built nothing. James, Donald Trump said it. Gary, why does it have to be about black and white? Ask Donald Trump. Why did Donald Trump say that? Answer directly. Don't deviate. Don't do anything. James Martin and Gary Moore, answer the question directly. Directly. You say anything else other than answer the question directly, sorry, you got to go. Gary, sorry, you got to go. I told you to answer the question directly. You didn't do that, so you can go. No. I don't do keyboard warriors. Bowhunter Oathkeeper says, why should someone who has never had a slave be paid by someone that's never owned slaves? Let me explain to you in detail, Oath. And I want you to pause for a second and listen. I didn't invade any country, but I'm paying for that right now. My foundational Black American ancestors didn't put any Japanese people in any kind of camp, but they paid taxes on that. Same with the Italian Americans. So I want you to address that directly. Don't just say, well, I don't agree with that either. No. That is a dodge. And I won't listen to another word that you have to say. Answer that directly. How do you explain my ancestors having to pay for things that they clearly had nothing to do with? Clearly. And I want an answer. Miss Roberts says, do Americans not know what generational wealth is? I'm not American, and I know that. Miss Robin, I love you so much. You are great. Lord Knife War King, you are on point as always. Love you, brother. All power to the people. You one of the best panelists that I know, and you know, honestly, man, Lord Knife, he's one of those guys. He don't fake the funk, man. I actually do appreciate the fact that you actually go out there on the streets and you do the work, man. See, IFBA brothers, man, we are strong brothers. You know, if we actually take the time to put in the work, if we actually take the time to care, like he does, you can do great things. See, but once again, people come from different parts of the diaspora, and they'll say these things, or you'll get people now who are saying, "Well, I'm a foundational white American. I'm a foundational Italian American." They're already trying to piggyback off of our movement. It's just ridiculous. They're already trying to piggyback off of our movement, just like Black Lives Matter. People had Blue Lives Matter. You know, you had so many organizations that we started, and suddenly white people says, "Well, I want to be included too. I want to be included." The reason why you can't be included with everything, white people, is because you're not impressed like us. You didn't have to fight for the Civil Rights Act. You didn't have to fight for slavery to end. And if you mention our Mars, if you see Irish slaves mentioned, ban that person from the chat. You want to know why? Because even the people talking about Irish slaves don't even care about Irish people. You want to know how I know? If you care about Irish people, you would help them fight for their independence, but you won't do it. So unless you're gonna hop on a plane and go help the Irish people fight for their independence, right? Okay, red leg, you're banned from the chat. Goodbye. Unless you're gonna fly over and help the Irish people fight for their independence, right? I don't want to hear about Irish slaves, because first of all, that was a big exaggeration. They were indentured servants, not slaves. Big difference. Big difference. See, notice how I mentioned the Irish slaves, and the whole time that wasn't mentioned in the whole chat, and as soon as I mentioned it, he mentioned it. It's almost as if I predicted what he was gonna do. What did I just say? These people are predictable. They do the same stuff every time. If you simply follow my playbook, you'll grow just like me. You get the same fame, same notoriety, because you'll know what to say and how to say it, and people will watch your videos, right? and they will think that you are you are Nostradamus, that you are a future time traveler. See, people don't understand. It's not that I'm so smart. It's that my enemies are so incompetent. When you make yourself that predictable, I can't help but make videos and then grow from it. It's the same stuff, same pattern. Deny, insult, twist. Don't directly address things. Notice how people who have over 1,000 followers, they never cop into the guest box. You want to know why? Because they never want to have the conversation. Not an actual conversation. They rather just sit in the comment section and just shout stuff. Well, and then when you ban them, oh, you just don't want to hear a different opinion. It's not that I don't want to hear a different opinion. It's that I truly want to hear a different opinion and not the same thing spouted in the freaking comment section. Come into the guest box. Let's have the conversation. Well, I don't have 1,000 followers, and you're making videos. It sounds like you shouldn't be in the comment section commenting. It sounds like you should be working. Am I lying? Am I wrong? I don't mind people in the comment section who don't have. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if you're gonna show up and criticize somebody else's content, criticize what they're saying, and then claim that they don't have some kind of reach, but then you don't have enough reach to even have the conversation in person, I wouldn't do that. You know, I'm just saying, when you have the conversation about this stuff, right? When you talk about reparations, police brutality, racism, and everything else, the tactics are the same. They're going to mention Chicago. They're going to mention Irish slaves. They're going to mention people. They're going to mention Native Americans. They're going to mention what about black on black crime? They're going to mention just those four things, those 3 or 4 things. They're going to mention those consistently, right? That's usually how it starts. And then when you actually engage with them, right? Because let me actually give you some ways to respond to that, right? So when they mention Chicago, this is how you should respond. When they say Chicago, say, okay, if a black man is fatally shot by a police officer in Alaska, how would Chicago factor into that? Now, granted, on the face surface, it doesn't seem like that would give them a real tongue twister, right? But mentioning Alaska and the very mental image of Alaska, it makes their point look ridiculous. Because it was always ridiculous. You just have to give the proper mental imagery to make it look as ridiculous as it sounds. Second thing, when they mention you mentioned police brutality and they mentioned black on black crime. Say that's interesting. Interesting. You mentioned black on black crime. First of all, what are you talking about when you say black? You play the same game with them. What do you mean by black? Are some of those people from the Caribbean? Are some of them from the African continent? Are we all the same? Just because we're dark, we are all the same? That's interesting. So whenever a person from Romania goes over and commits a crime, or somebody from Ireland, then I should hold all white people all white people responsible, right? Because Romania has a high crime rate. Are you responsible for that too? When I go over to West Virginia, right? When I go over to West Virginia, are you now saying that that those people speak for all white people? So whenever a white person, right, whenever they end up overdosing, right, should I say that's not a problem because they're white? And white people just do that, right? See, I work corrections, so I know that. Now, also, I have a degree in psychology. So I also know that very, very well. I was also in the freaking military. So trust me, I've seen my fair share of that. So how do you explain all that? By the way, if you go over to Europe right now, there's a whole lot of white on white crime that's going on. So if you're going to hold me responsible for black on black crime here, then all the tax money that's being sent to that conflict in freaking Europe, I'm going to hold you responsible for that. How come white people can't fix their countries where you can't have wars, huh? That cost me billions. Billions. White man. Maybe we gotta go put some more white fathers in these European homes, right? Put the mothers back into the European homes. Fix these European homes, right? Right? Uh-huh. See, you don't like it when I put it like that, because that one stings. Now, when they mention things like well, what about the black fathers? Why are the black fathers in the home? We are in the home. It's just that white supremacists love to remove us from the home. And here's how you trap them, right? You say, okay, are you saying that that's not true? Interesting. So all the criticisms that you've given the Democrats and Black Lives Matter and everybody else who's attacked the black family, it looks like that's all invalid, right? Or is it valid? Were they attacking the black man or were they not? Did Joe Biden write the crime bill or did he not? Because you said the 1994 crime bill targeted the black community. Did it target black women more or black men? Black men. You said that, right? So that's why you use that point. You trap them like that. See, there's no way to logically get out of that. And make sure when you have this conversation, you either record or you're around a bunch of people. Because when you phrase it like that, even a person who's disingenuous, who if you're by yourself, they're gonna keep being disingenuous, but around a crowd, right? Right? But around a crowd, they won't go there. You're responsible for black on black crime. I'm responsible. That's a little, yeah. I'm responsible for something that's 150 years in the past. First of all, slavery is not over. 13th Amendment. Second thing is there's generational damage that was done. Now, I'm going to present a scenario, and I want you to directly respond to that, Scooter. Don't say anything else until you respond to this scenario. Now, in West Virginia, because of the American Civil War, those people were left in a bad condition. There's been studies that have shown that. This is why they speak an older version of English. This is why it seems like they're almost stuck in like a freaking time warp. We know this. We know that parts of Germany has not recovered from what happened there. We know this. And it happened so long ago, right? So I want you to directly respond to that. How is it possible that damage could be done that we can still see the remnants of, that people have acknowledged from other countries, and yet you think 400 years of slavery does nothing? And not only that, civil rights era. There are people who are still alive, who were alive before the civil rights era, for the Civil Rights Act was even passed. Do you understand that? So I want you to respond to that. Don't say anything belligerent. Respond directly to that. I gave you a direct challenge. You're going to respond to that directly, or you can leave. Snyder says, let me ask, should we audit federal, state, and city laws to eliminate racism built into law? I'm down with that, but I would love to get reparations first. But we should audit all that. Especially anything that was anything that's on the books that is pre-Civil Rights Act, definitely by default, and then we just work our way back from that, because that means that all the older laws we are looking at, and we are trying to actually repair damage. Crazy dog owner says you don't deserve. Okay, I want you to use an actual original point. So I'm gonna give you one more chance to say something that's actually constructive. So why do you think that we don't deserve anything? Why do you think that? I'm just curious. And I want you to use an actual original point. You use an insult, you got to go. We're here to have a constructive conversation. We're not here for trolling. But we're gonna move on. My thing is that we have to focus on getting reparations to repair Black America. 40% of your slaves are Black Americans. You know, A lot of people who are in poverty are Black Americans. A lot of people who have been shut out of fair housing. We had to actually pass the Fair Housing Act, which means that there was something before that, right? Right? How do you build generational wealth if the housing wasn't fair, if the opportunities were not fair? You can't do that. How do you think all these millionaires and billionaires came to be? Most of them, a good bit of them, either got money as a freaking inheritance or a substantial loan from family members. A substantial portion of them. The whole myth that somebody can be self-made is a myth. It's not true. Not for the most part. So with that being said, this whole self-made myth, it's not true, because there's a whole lot of white people who tried that actual path, and it didn't work out for you. It just happens to be that most people who are billionaires in this country, either directly or indirectly, got some of their wealth from slavery. Nobody wants to admit to that. You look at even alcohol and liquor. Many of those companies, tobacco, definitely. Without question. Think about tobacco. Think about how much slave labor was used to actually go and pick those crops. Think about cotton. Think about all the products that was once grown in the South. Right? Crazy Dog Owner says blacks. I'm gonna try to get through the comment. Blacks have more funds for them. No, we don't. I want a direct example of that. Name the act. First thing, I'm gonna give you 4 things to name. Name the funds that's just for us. 2, the college funds that's just for us. 3, we have our own month, shortest month in the whole year. 4, our own TV channel. What? That isn't anything the government did for us. First of all, what does a TV channel do? Okay. Crazy Dog Owner, you got to go. I told you to respond, and you didn't respond. So, like I said, I tried to engage with people, but if you're going to say that kind of stuff, then you got to go. And if you're going to defend him anyway, then you also gotta go. No, I run a tight ship here. You're not going to spread misinformation on my channel. You're not going to insult foundational Black Americans on this channel. You're not going to lie on this channel. You're going to be honest and truthful. He's going to say HBCUs. The same HBCUs that are underfunded. The same HBCUs that, for the most part, are not run by foundational Black Americans. Many of them are ran by white people. Behind the scenes. Excuse me? Lord Knife, man, you were just on point today, man, brother. All positive. You on point. Yeah. You knew what he was gonna say. I already knew. I said HBCUs. Oh my gosh. HBCUs. It is just wild, the things these people say. Wow. Have you read any comment, any dissenting comment that actually pushed you away from reparations? Did it actually change your mind? No. Because I'm presenting something that is not only truthful, but it's new. It's things that you don't hear often. Right? Comment here says, I was gonna say that he was gonna say affirmative action. Yeah. He was, and affirmative action does not benefit us in the majority. This is why when things are written for reparations, for anything that's for foundational Black Americans, it has to be foundational Black Americans, and that's what it is. No people of color, no women, none of that stuff. You want to know why? Because if you say foundational Black Americans, that covers Black women, covers Black women who are foundational Black Americans, that covers Black men who are foundational Black Americans, that covers LGBT who are foundational Black Americans. We don't need to add all those extra words, because when you add those extra words, you know what you're doing. Nope. No. Can't do it. Captain Groovy Beard says affirmative action benefited white women more than anyone. Absolutely it did. It did. And it's been known for quite some time. So whenever they mention affirmative action, throw that back at them. Throw that back at them. So we have to have honest conversations. When you have your lives on your channels, demand honest conversations. People want to have honest conversations. We'll tell them that you can't have honest conversations with dishonest people. Affirmative action has benefited white women in the majority for quite some time. In fact, I'm going to show it to you real quick. I'm going to show it to you real quick. I'm going to go to my desktop. I know a lot of people don't know this, and it's kind of funny because a lot of people don't know this. But let me just do something real quick. I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to show it to you. On screen, I'm going to just switch to thingy here. See, oops. Enhance. Flip camera. Boom. All right, so let me go. Give me a quick second. I'm typing with one hand here. Action. Affirmative action benefits mostly white women. Yeah, it's been known for quite some time. As you can see, look at all these articles here. It's been known for quite some time, right? It's been known. It's been known. It's been known, guys. So all these people are lying to you about it. So we're going to open up a Time magazine article, right? Affirmative action has helped white women more than anyone. Wow. Affirmative action has benefited white women more than anyone. Right? I'm going to read this whole article, this whole paragraph here. I want you to see why I say foundational Black Americans, when you write reparations, when you write benefits for us, you cannot include anything else but foundational Black Americans. Because when you include words like women, you get white women. Let me explain to you. Watch this. The reason why affirmative action benefits mostly white women. Originally, women weren't even included in legislation attempting to level the playing field in education and employment. The first affirmative action measure in America was an executive order signed by President Kennedy in 1961, requiring that federal contractors take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and employees are treated during employment without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin. In 1967, President Johnson amended this, and a subsequent measure included sex, recognizing that women also face many discriminatory barriers and hurdles to equal opportunity. Meanwhile, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 only included sex in the list of prohibited forms of discrimination because conservative opponents of Congress. So it was the conservatives who did this now. So that's how you know that it was racist. Watch this. It's going to blow your mind because conservative opponents of the legislation hope that including it would sway moderate members of Congress to withdraw their support for the bill. Still, in a nation where white women and Black people were once considered property, not allowed to own property themselves and not allowed to vote, it is clear to all those who were seeking fairness and opportunity that both groups face monumental obstacles. However, you saw what happened there. It was the conservatives who tried to include women. Because if you simply included Black people, it would have been included for Black women and Black men. You did not need to include the language women. This is what happened. This is how they killed affirmative action and made it mostly benefit white women. This is why I say what I say. Now you see it. You saw it on screen. Reparations, when they write the actual bill, has to be limited to foundational Black Americans. You cannot include people of color because once you do that, that is going to open up the floodgates for everybody else. If it's meant for us, then simply put us. Don't include sexuality, don't include gender, don't include any of that. If it's for Black people, guess what? The Black LGBT, I love them too. They will get it too. And I want them to. I want them to get their paper. All black LGBT who is foundational black Americans, I want you to get your paper. If you're a black woman, if you're a foundational black American, if you simply put foundational black Americans, that includes foundational black American women. But once you include gender, and gender alone, you saw what happens. They did it intentionally to kill the bill. So all the people who are doing it right now, who happen to be so-called Democrats, what do you think they are secretly? And that's all I gotta say, y'all. Love you all. Until next time, horns up, peace out, good night, and good luck. Thank you all for joining me. Be safe out there, guys.